the topic of my presentation is grain growth in polycrystalline thin film, a phase field study. So before going into the actual talk, I would like to say something about our group. So we mostly work on microstructure modeling and simulation using phase field model as well as multi-scale models. And the topics we are working on at present are effect of external fields on microstructure evolution, mostly elastic field and magnetic field. Then microstructure evolution in thin film, both in single crystalline and polycrystalline thin film. And then also we are working on microstructure evolution in superalloys using quantitative models and multi-scale models using atomistic simulation as well as thermodynamic databases. And also we are trying to predict the overall property of those from those microstructure using finite element simulations for mostly cobalt-based, nickel-based, and titanium-based superalloys. We are also working on a few other solid-state phase transformations like discontinuous precipitation and other kinds of precipitation in alloys, precipitate matrix microstructures. And so use of this
Sorry, I think we lost Rajdeep. I will. So please wait. I will find out from him, and probably we will switch to his hotspot connections.
क्या बोलते हैं सर?
Hello.
Yes, Rajdeep, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry. This thing is
No issue.
happening for the last 3 days. I don't know if it happens again. It happens again, then I'll try to connect with my mobile phone. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Should I start? Then I stop my video. Okay, maybe some bandwidth problem.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm keeping my video on. Let's see. Okay.
sure, Rajdeep. Let's try.
Mm-hmm. So this slide I was presenting, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the previous one, I think it is
This one.
towards the end of this. So,
Okay.
multi-scale and
So,
then
so So that is what I was telling, that we also work on multi-scale modeling, where we use kinetic Monte Carlo, DFT, and finite element models along with phase field model. But for we generally collaborate with other people, other research groups. So okay, so we move on to the next slide where we have a. Are you able to see my slides?
yeah, we can
Yeah.
see.
So here in the top left corner, you can see these are some simulated microstructure using phase field model in our group. And we are working on these topics also. So on the top left corner, you can see the microstructure evolution during spinodal decomposition and the effect of external magnetic field on spinodal decomposition. So using external magnetic fields, we can align the two-phase microstructure. Mostly one phase is ferromagnetic, another phase is paramagnetic. We can align these microstructures in a particular direction, and we can control the morphology using elastic field. The second one, so we can see the effect of the interaction between the magnetic field and elastic field for such microstructures. You can also see the domain formation and stuff for us in completely ferromagnetic material that we can see, and a two-phase material, what is the effect of these magnetic domains that we have also observed. So in the next figure, the right-hand side top figure, you can see the microstructure evolution of gamma prime precipitate in a gamma matrix using a multi-scale model. There are 2 times matrix I have typed, so one will be there. So here you can see cuboid kind of microstructures. We have also done in 3 dimension as well. And this is a multi-scale study where we calculate the elastic constant, interfacial energy, misfit strain, all these things from atomistic simulations. And we integrate also the free energy also we take from CalFAT database, right? And using that, we can simulate these microstructures, and with coarsening, how the overall elastic constant will change, that we can calculate from finite element models. So these are the 2 work on phase transformation. Then we started working on phase field modeling of de-wetting in thin films. So de-wetting can occur both in single crystalline and polycrystalline thin films, and grain growth can occur also. So in the left-hand side figure, you can see a corner instability there is a cubic anisotropic surface energy. Surface energy has a cubic anisotropy, and you can see that hole is not square. It forms the corners, so there is an instability, star-shaped kind of holes that people often frequently observe in experiment that we have simulated here. Phase field modeling of the instability formation during hole growth in a thin film. And the next figure, you can see what we are going to present, what I'm going to present today is the phase field modeling of grain growth in thin film, where we can see how this grooving, if in a polycrystalline material, how the grain boundary groups on the surface can affect the grain growth in a thin film. Okay, so this we will discuss in detail in today's presentation. And next also, we worked on phase field modeling of nanostructure evolution in multilayer thin film. Generally, we observe that coarsening occurs from the larger particles grow at the expense of smaller particle. But in this ensemble, there are conditions where the smaller particle can also grow at the expense of larger particle. Okay, so these are the things we observed here. And finally, also we started working a little bit on high entropy alloys by making a pseudo ternary kind of phase diagram. And we did quantitative modeling of microstructure evolution in eutectic high entropy alloy. So these are some microstructures that you can see. You have simulated using phase field model and multi-scale model as well. So now we'll move on to our actual presentation, right? So Guru, I am audible. Am I audible?
Yes,
Hello?
Rajdeep, it's clear. No issues.
Yes. Okay. So today I am going to talk on the grain growth in a polycrystalline thin film, a phase field study, and this is part of this work is part of the thesis from Miral Verma, my PhD student, who submitted his thesis recently. It's the microstructure evolution in solid state thin films, a phase field study. And in some of his work, Dr. Sandeep Sugathan and Professor Shashwata Bhattacharya, they also have some significant contribution. Okay, so these are the few papers that we published recently from this work. So we'll basically show from his three results chapters, not the instability, whole instability, only the grain growth part from his thesis. Okay, so start with the introduction. Means there may be a single crystalline thin film or a polycrystalline thin film, right? And all of you know that as deposited thin films are not equilibrium structures, and they have the excess free energy because the surface energy to volume ratio is very high. And this excess surface energy, due to high surface area to volume ratio, the film decomposes and close to, and we get island kind of morphology, right? And this generally occurs at high temperature but well below melting point. So single crystalline thin films, we generally have some pre-existing defects or holes which grow with time, and we have this de-wetting phenomena. Whereas in polycrystalline thin film, the mechanism is slightly different, and there we have the grain boundaries and the pits. Pits means sweat-free grain boundaries meeting at the surface, right? So this grooving and pitting, due to grooving and pitting, hole formation occurs, and these holes grow with time, and they are also, we get island formations. So this is slightly detrimental for applications, for certain thin film applications, but people are also using this kind of phenomena to control this kind of phenomena for getting nano dots and different kinds of other applications where you have islands kind of morphology, which are useful for electronic applications. Okay, so here in this talk, we'll not talk about, although we have done this whole growth in single crystalline thin film, but we'll mostly discuss the microstructure evolution in a polycrystalline material. And mostly we'll just focus on not on the whole growth thing, but on the grain growth study. Okay. So here is an experimental observation. You can see on the left-hand side is a de-wetting in single crystalline thin film. And these are the optical micrographs of 60 nanometer thick AU thin films on amorphous silicon dioxide substrate at different stages of de-wetting. And you can see initially there are small areas were uncovered on the extreme left. And then you see small dots, right? Those are the islands, black dots, right? These are the islands formation occurring. So there's complete de-wetting occurs, and you can see this kind of island formation occurs here. Whereas in a de-wetting in a polycrystalline thin film, also you can see here on the right hand side, this is the SEM image of a 15 nanometer thick gold film after annealing at 450 degrees centigrade and 600 degrees centigrade. So these are often observed, this kind of de-wetting in both single crystalline and polycrystalline thin film. And polycrystalline thin film, this grooving and grain growth are particularly important for this de-wetting phenomena, right? So this is another one. This is a very nice microstructure. You can see where you can see from the top surface, and you can see there are groove formation, because you can see these grains are carved, right? This is carved. This is curvature because there was a grooving, right? So surface profiles are overlapped, and that is why these surfaces are carved, right? And you can see grooving and pitting both are occurring, and generally the hole formation, because pit depth is generally more than the groove depth. And you can see nice hole formation is occurring, uncovering the substrate with time. So this is a Marcos microstructure evolution of a ZrO2 3 mole percent Y2O3 thin film on an alumina substrate, I think, on heat treatment of 1400 degrees centigrade. So this is basically a temporal evolution, the evolution with time, and you can see the grooving and pitting is occurring as well as hole formation is happening at the same time. So we are mostly interested in the very first figure, this kind of microstructure where hole formation is not occurring, okay? Because the thin film is slightly thicker, and the groove or the pits, they don't reach the substrate, okay? but these grooves or pits can effectively pin the grain growth behavior, right? So that is what we are going to see in in this study, how these grooves actually pin the grain boundaries, and there is a grooving and grain growth is occurring simultaneously. So generally the groove formation for the stationary boundary, this is well studied, and also people know the grain growth behavior in a thin film. If there is not thin film, in the bulk maybe. If there is no effect of groove, but they have a complex interaction, this grooving and grain growth together, and that is what we are going to study in this work, right? So let us start talking about grain boundary grooving. You can think of a bicrystal which have a grain 1 and grain 2, and there is a surface above it. Okay, and they have isotropic surface energy. Initially, we can assume they always can can also have anisotropic surface energies, but initially we assume that they have isotropic surface energy, gamma s, and gamma EGB is the grain boundary energy. Then when the grain boundary meets the free surface, the groove formation occurs at the intersection, and we can calculate the dihedral angle if we know the grain boundary energy as well as the surface energy, right? And generally, the surface diffusion is very high compared to the bulk diffusion. So this grooving phenomena is mostly dictated by the surface diffusion. It is the rate controlled by the surface diffusion. And when the surface diffusion is the rate controlling mechanism, the shape of the groove profile takes a time independent form. That is what was reported by W. Malins in his classical paper. There are some typos anyway. So in his classical paper in 1957, so he found that it analytically showed that this group profile takes a time independent form, and also we get a relationship of dg to the power from where dg group depth to the power 4 versus time shows a linear relationship when this is surface diffusion controlled. Now, if this grain boundary is not stationary or not grain boundary try to move forward because there is some driving force for grain growth, then in the following paper, Malins also suggested that proposed that this thermal groove formation at the intersection of the grain boundary and surface can be responsible for stagnation of normal grain growth. And he used a very simple system for this analytical calculation, where a cylindrical grain is embedded in a very large grains. Okay, and this cylindrical grain should shrink with time, but there is a groove formation around this circular trace, right? So the groove formation occurs where the grain boundary will meet the surface, right? So the surface circular grain will try to shrink, but these grooves will try to pin the grain boundary. So Malins assumed that these grooves are like a V kind of notch, okay, which are fixed at the surface. And a boundary with an angle theta, he found that if the boundary with an angle theta less than theta c, a critical angle, will be anchored by up to the groove as it would be forced to lengthen in order to escape. And for a theta larger than the theta c, the boundary will spontaneously escape from the notch. And this value of theta mostly depend on the radius of this r. You can see the radius of the circular grain and the thickness of this thin film. So it is function of radius and thickness of this thin film. It is function of r by a. Okay, but this function also depends on many other parameters. But if you think of a very large grain, then this function tends to r by 2a kind of thing. So this is also known as the thickness effect. So if the thickness is smaller and smaller, the pinning effect will be more. Okay, so for a larger, thicker film, this pinning effect will be less, and a smaller film for a freestanding thin film. This is right. Both side it is grooving, right? The stagnation the pinning force will be more. The effect, the possibility of stagnation will be more for a thinner film. So this is also known as specimen thickness effect. Okay, so this is a cylindrical grain embedded in a very large grain. So this kind of system also you will see we have started using a phase field model. So now I just quickly move to the phase field model, which we have used. So we have developed a phase field model. Many other people also develop such models. There are such certain variations depending on the problem which we are studying. And here we have the bulk free energy as well the interfacial energy. And we used, so basically in this model, you can think of this is a combination of a kind of POTS model equivalent to a POTS model which we can use for studying grain growth, and a lattice gas model which we use for studying the material and the vapor system. So this is a something combination of this kind of model. It is equivalent to that. And here the grains of a polycrystals are in a two-phase equilibrium. So grains of a polycrystal are in equilibrium with its vapor phase, right? And here C is a scaled conserved parameter, which you can think of the density of the vapor phase. Phi is the grain orientation, because we have a polycrystal which is in equilibrium with the surface, with the vapor phase, right? So there are defined grains, and phi is the grain orientation. Kappa C and kappa phi are the gradient energy coefficient for composition and the non-conserved order parameter phi respectively. So C is a conserved parameter which is density, and phi is a non-conserved order parameter which is a grain orientation. And kappa is the gradient energy coefficient. L is the relaxation coefficient which is related to the grain boundary mobility. Beta S and beta GB are parameters which control the interfacial energy, the surface energy and the grain boundary energy. And A is a parameter to control the height of the double well potential, and P is the number of grains. So using this model, we can control the surface energy and the grain boundary energy separately, and also we can have enhanced surface diffusivity. So the surface diffusivity is very important in this case because it controls the grain boundary grooving kinetics, and that in turn can affect the grain growth, right? So so if you think of this bulk free energy FCV phi I, they have three terms. One is related to the concentration field or density field. The second one is a 2-4 kind of potential, which fixes the equilibrium of the grains. And there are two more terms, F interfacial energy, where you can see the first term actually we are using for controlling the surface energy, and the second one is for the second term in this one is beta GB phi I square phi j square. It is related to the grain boundary energy. So here beta S and beta GB are parameters to control the interfacial energies. Okay, and here you can get minimas where for vapor where CV equal to 1, phi I equal to 0, because the vapor phase does not have any grain orientation. So all phi's will be 0 here. Whereas in grains, inside one grain, you can think of in ith grain, the ith phi or phi I will be 1, all others phi's will be 0. And the density of vapor phase is also 0 inside the material. Okay, so this is the basic phase field model which we are going to use, and there are two parameters, right? Phase field parameter. One is conserved and it's non-conserved parameters, and the evolution of the conserved parameters, so density is governed by the Cahn-Hilliard equation, and the evolution of phi is governed by the Allen-Cahn equation. So we use a periodic boundary condition on both the sides, all the sides basically. So this is a 3-dimensional simulation, and we use semi-implicit Fourier spectral method to solve the Cahn-Hilliard equation. And we use, because we have a fourth order term here, right? So that is why if we use the semi-implicit Fourier spectral method in Fourier space, we can solve a first order equation, right? And for the order parameter field, for phi I, we use a finite difference technique, because here we use a defined algorithm. So inside the same time loop, you can say we are solving this Cahn-Hilliard equation using a Fourier spectral method and Allen-Cahn equation using finite difference technique. Because for Allen-Cahn equation, which is responsible for the grain growth, we use active parameter tracking, for which we collaborate with Professor Bhattacharya and his student. And this algorithm is incorporated, which enables us to use a large number of grains in simulation without increasing the computational cost, because we don't solve this equation at all the points where this phi 3 or 4 phi's are active. The active phi's only we can resolve in the system, but not inside the grain. So it increases our computation time as well as our memory consumption, right? So we can actually, with this algorithm, we can simulate a very large system in 3 dimensions. So all the parameters used in our simulations are in their non-dimensional form, but we can always get back to their dimensional form if required. Okay, so we start with the model validation part. Okay, so there may be 3 kinds of because this is very well known. Many people have done this thing, this validation, that's for the stationary groove, right? In last 10 years, maybe. And here you can see there is a bicrystal. There is a grain 1 and grain 2, and there is a groove formation occurring, right? So there is a vapor phase on top of it, right? And here we compare the Malin's theory of surface diffusion control thermal grooving in a stationary grain boundary. And here you can see, if you plot the groove depth as a function of time, then dg, if you function as a function of t to the power 1/4, it will show a linear phenomenon. It shows a linear behavior, right? What Malin showed actually in his theory. And again, if we have the composition profiles at different times and we scale them by certain length scale, you can see all these profiles will overlap on each other. So these are the second figure where you can, in the bottom row, where you can see there are different times 10,000, 40,000, or 80,000. We have scaled our x and y axis, and they are overlapping exactly on each other. So there is a universal profile you can see. And this universal profile matches very well. It agrees very well with the Malin's profile that is predicted by Malin's in his analytical theory. But this is for the stationary groove, right? But we are more interested in grain growth, where the grain boundary will be moving, right? So for that also, Malin's has few theories, but there are no numerical models who validated this kind of theory, right? And these are for moving grain boundaries. And you can see here, we have validated it for a steady state motion of the grain boundary, where groove attached to a grain boundary moves at a steady state. And you can see there is an asymmetric profile here, and asymmetric groove profile. And when the group, this grain boundary moves at a constant velocity here, we use a external force to we used actually one grain, the energy of a grain is slightly higher than the other. So there is a constant driving force for grain growth. And in this case, you can see a steady state grain boundary movement. And what is interesting here, the groove depth here in the bottom left figure, you can see these are the surface profiles at different times. Okay. And you can see the groove depth is not changing with time. That is also was predicted by Malin's. And again, if we scale them using a specific length scale, they will exactly overlap on each other, and it also matches with the Malin's result. Okay. So why we are doing this thing? Because in a polycrystalline material, when grain growth will occur, there may be some grain will be stagnated. Okay, so those grooves will follow the stationary grain boundary phenomena, right? And some grain boundaries will move at a steady state, and some grain boundaries can have a decelerating motion. So we can show that in if we have simplified condition, we can actually match our model for stationary grain boundary, for steady state motion of the grain boundary. And the next slide, you can see it also matches with the theory for decelerating motion of the grain boundary, where the grain boundary, this grain boundary velocity is not constant, it actually decreases with time. But in this case, you can see it again follows this, the group that follows t to the power 1/4 law. Okay, so here this group that follows t to the power 1/4 law. So here also we get this time invariant profile, although this above certain thickness, you can get steady state profile, and this is a universal profile for all the thicknesses above certain thickness. But below this thickness or below this critical groove angle. Basically, you can have this time invariant profile, but this may depend on the film thickness. Okay, but this exactly matches also with the Mullins's theory of decelerating motion of the grain boundary. So we validated our results for stationary grain boundary as well as the decelerating motion of the grain boundary and steady state motion of the grain boundary, so that we can use this model perfectly for a polycrystalline material where all these three cases will be there in a complex manner, right? Okay, so next we started with a cylindrical grain, what Mullins exactly told. There's a cylindrical grain which will shrink with time, right? And here you can see we use different, so we wanted to check whether there is a specimen thickness effect or not, that we discussed earlier, right? So the spinning force basically depends on the specimen thickness and grain size. So here you can see that we have used 4 different thicknesses: 32, 48, 72, and 96. And here you can see if we decrease the film thickness, the pinning effect is more and it deviates from the linear behavior. This is a plot with area versus time plot. So area is the cross-sectional area of this cylindrical grain and H is the film thickness. So for different age values, for different film thickness values, how the area is changing with time, we can see here. So for a very large system, it shows a linear behavior, but we see in case of bulk, if there is no surface present, infinite cylinder, right? But if you go to lower thicknesses, you can see there is no stagnation yet. If there is a stagnation, there is something very interesting, which is called catenoid formation, where the in-plane curvature and out of plane curvature becomes equal, and it takes the shape of a catenoid. So we don't see it here, but we can obviously see there is some significant, it means the grain and grain growth, right? So so grain growth is much slower, or the grain shrinkage is much slower for a lower film thickness. So if we the three-dimensional view, we can see the top left one, and then you can see the surface profile or exit section, how this grain is shrinking with the asymmetric groove formation. And the right hand side, you can see area versus time for different film thicknesses. But catenoid formation is not present here, so we don't see complete grain growth stagnation. That also we'll discuss when in what case we can get actually this grain growth stagnation. So next, once we have seen that it is working for this, our model is working for a cylindrical grain, we move to a polycrystalline material. And here you can see, I can show you one video is also there. If you want, I can see. If you want, I can show it also. Here you can see that we started with the same cross-sectional area. The grain size distribution in 2 dimensions is same. So these are all columnar grains, right? And you have vapor phase on both above and below the surface. And you can see the groove formation is occurring for this polycrystalline material. And the above one is for H equal to 32 for a lower film thickness, and below one is for a larger film thickness. And here you can see clearly, it is visible that the grain growth is much much less for a lower film thickness, where for a larger film thickness there is considerable grain growth. But if we plot the bulk grain growth versus other two thin film grain growth in thin film, so both are lower. But for 32, it is saturating towards the value, and you can see that it is close to stagnation of a grain growth, right? For a multi-grain simulation. So we can obviously see in the polycrystalline material there is a specimen thickness effect, right? And next, you can see we can extract some part of this microstructure, and you can see how this groove formation, grooving or pitting is occurring for both the microstructures. And you can see here we have extracted 2 small areas, and for H equal to 32 and H equal to 96, and we wanted to see how this surface profile, the surface profile for this 2 small microstructure area, right? Area of microstructure. So in so grouped and pit depth per unit film thickness, we can see in this case more for H equal to 32. So on the right hand side there are plots which you can see along AB. So AB in both the microstructure, you can see there is a diagonal kind of line, which is AB, and there which is perpendicular line, which is CD. Along these two lines, we see the surface profile, right? Means the depth of the surface, the position of the surface, basically, right? And you can see that from the original baseline. And you can see for h equal to 32, this group depth and peak depth is more, right? So what we have seen for a steady state motion, when there is a continuous grain growth, generally the group depth does not change much, right, with time. And that is what we observe for h equal to 96. Whereas for h equal to 32, we can see this grooving is occurring, which we can see for a decelerating motion of grain boundary. So, this trend is very well matches with the theory, and you can see there is more stagnation in case of a lower film thickness and less stagnation for a larger film thickness. Okay. Now we try to quantify these things from grain size distribution, and here you can see this is the grain size distribution with time, right? T equal to 1000, 2000, 3000, 4000, 5000. So if you go to this microstructure, this goes from 100 to 5000, right? So here you can see initially there is this blue curve is for bulk, and these beans are for h equal to 32, and there is a feed also, right? So initially it follows exactly the bulk behavior or the log normal behavior for h equal to 32 at time t equal to 1000, but it starts deviating. Why it starts deviating? Because some of the grains become pinned and some of the grains are unpinned, right? So that is why it does not follow the normal grain growth behavior, right? And towards the end, you can see again it comes back to the log normal kind of distribution, because at that time all grains are above some critical size and all grains are equally pinned, right? So they show a log normal kind of behavior. Whereas for h equal to 32 from initial stage, there are some grains are pinned, some grains are not pinned, and even at the time t equal to 5000, it didn't come back to log normal behavior. But if we run it for some more time, because here the film thickness is more, right? So here if we run it for the more time, then it will obviously will come back to the log normal case, right? So this is what we get from the grain size distribution. And once, so basically we wanted to find what is the critical grain size, right, for film thickness, for a particular film thickness for which the stagnation will occur. So for that, these beans actually we wanted to find the slowest moving bean for which the frequency change rate is minimum over time. It is the accurate estimation of the critical grain size. And if for h equal to 32, I find that 50 to 60, that bean size. Hello? Yeah. So the 50 to 60 bean size is actually the critical bean size. And whereas for h equal to 96, the 80 to 90, that bean size is the critical grain size. So now we use few toy problems to see whether we actually can get grain stagnation if we have certain defined kind of problems, right? So first you see here the distribution of grains larger than the critical size. For h equal to 32, you can see some of grains are stagnated, some grains are not. Where for h equal to 96, there are larger grains, and this larger grains, you know this is f of r, this is the function of r by a, right? So larger grains are pinned and smaller grains will be not pinned, right? So, so here you can see the grains larger than the critical size are white, and grains smaller than the critical size are blue. And we can see white grains are growing very slowly as compared to the other grains. So you can observe a time evolution, and you can see the green grains are shrinking or they are growing, but the white grains, they are not changing much in size because they are above the critical size. Okay, so now you start try to check the effect of topology on grain boundary stagnation, and we use three different conditions. The first conditions, we have alternate layers of small and large grains. In the second condition, we have a random distribution of small and large grains. Small and large means above critical radius and below the critical radius, right? And third is the all are large grains. So 55 we have taken here because here you can see we get the critical grain size is 55, right? So you can see the first one for H equal to 32, we have a layer of large grain and a small grain. This is a periodic microstructure, and here you can see this boundary between large grains and small grain is almost fixed. That you can see in the next slide maybe. There's a H equal to 96 where you can see this grain growth is same as the bulk grain growth behavior, at least at a later stage, right? So bulk means there is no surface. This is not a thin film, right? For H equal to 96 and H equal to 32, these are thin films. For bulk, there is no surface, right? These are all cylindrical, infinite cylindrical grains. So here you can see there is a no change in the interlayer position for the H equal to 32, and these small grains and large grains, this boundary is pinned because the large grains are pinned, and that is why this boundary between larger grains and smaller grains will also be pinned, right? And so we can also see for grain growth H equal to 32, it is very sluggish. Okay, we go to the second configuration where we have a random distribution of small and large grains. So we have only two defined grain sizes. So here you can see for H equal to 32, at the end you can get some necklace kind of microstructure. These small grains are these large grains are surrounded by the smaller grains, because the smaller grains sharing the boundaries between the larger grains, and larger grain boundaries are pinned, and that is why the small grains are also pinned along this boundary, right? Whereas for H equal to 96, you can see there is a grain growth is happening, which is because this is a larger film thickness, so the pinning effect will be much less, and here you can see that it is close to the bulk behavior, right? The grain growth in bulk. Now we wanted to see whether we can have complete pinning if we have only large grains. So here you can see that we have used only large grains from a thin film and for a bulk. And for a bulk, you can see there is a considerable grain growth. For the thin film, you see almost there is no grain growth is occurring. So if all the grains are above the critical grain size, it is not actually possible. This is a toy problem maybe, but you can see that there is a complete stagnation of growth can occurring if all grains are above the critical size. So complete stagnation was observed for film thickness 32 when all the grains are larger than the critical size. Okay, so we found that what is the critical size, how the grain size distribution is changing for a polycrystalline material, what is the specific specimen thickness effect, all we can find from this grain growth study. But one thing we didn't find for a size distribution of grains, which is not the actual problem, where you have a log normal distribution. There we don't see the complete stagnation of grain growth, right? So what we found that in Malin's theory, they assume the groove like a notch fixed at the surface, V kind of notch, which cannot move along with the grain boundary. Okay, and groove can behave like a notch. So we thought that we can also do the similar. We can have the similar condition if we can stop these grooves to grow. Okay, or if they cannot move, we can create such condition. So what we did, we initially started grooving, and after some time we stopped this grooving further grooving by lowering the surface diffusivity, right? And this can also occur in a real system if you do some surface treatment, and you can make the surface diffusivity to be very low. Okay, so here you can see the groove can behave like a notch if the surface diffusivity is reduced after groove formation. And here you can see for H equal to 32, there is this is for a cylindrical grain embedded in a larger surface. And there you can see these black dots. So there is almost complete stagnation of grain growth is occurring for a lower film thickness, which we don't see for a high surface diffusivity. So we can understand if we have a very low surface diffusivity and there is no grooving, or groove cannot move along with the grain boundary, then they will behave like a notch, what Malins told actually. And in that case, Malin's condition will satisfy. And he also gave this H by R versus A by R ratio, how it will changes. And these points, this green, blue, red, and these points are actually exactly on this curve for a catenoid condition. So in this case, we can see the catenoid formation is visible. Okay. So in this case, we can see three kinds of phenomena. One is group dragging, one is grain boundary stagnation, and another is group detachment. All these three things you can see experimentally, where group dragging is occurring, where the group is dragged along with the grain boundary. There is a second where the grain boundary stagnation occurs at certain point. After that, there is no more grain growth. This is after a very long time. And there may be another possibility where you can see them remnant groups, right? This is also from a simulation. There are some remnant groups. So basically grain boundary moves ahead, leaving the groove, and there is a new groove formation occurs at the surface. So all these three conditions we have found when the groove acts like a notch. So so there are three conditions where basically the in-plane curvature and out-of-plane curvature and theta c. If we can see on these three conditions, we can get group drag or group stagnation or group detachment, which also see from our simulations. Okay, we can also see some certain kind of what we see experimentally. We exactly don't know the reason, but you can see this is when grain growth is occurring. These triple points basically prefer to move along one of the grain boundaries, and these are the contours of the these grain boundaries at different time. And you can see this circular area where you can see these triple points are moving along a certain grain boundary. You can also see this. If we extract one of the grain, this grain boundary is undulated, this grain surface. And why this undulation occurred? Because these are because of the remnant grooves, because this grain boundary actually moved ahead and some groove remained, which will take time to heal. So there are some undulation on the film surface because there were remnant grooves. So all these features we have simulated using our phase field model. Okay, so finally, if you see the polycrystalline microstructure, if we use the notch kind of thing, if we initially allow surface grooving and then we decrease the surface diffusion to be much lower compared to the bulk diffusion rate, then you can see this is AMRS, this is the more reduced mobility, atomic mobility, and you can see for a smaller reduced atomic mobility and smaller film thickness, you can see almost complete stagnation, right? This is for bulk growth behavior on the top row, and the bottom row you can see there is no grain growth because now all the roofs acts like a notch, what Mullins told in his theory. And if we can do these things, so we can understand if we initially allow this groove formation to occur, and if we can do some surface treatment to make this groove acts like a notch, we can have complete grain growth stagnation. So like that, we can actually stagnate a grain structure in a thin film, and which may be very much useful for some specific applications. Okay, so here I want to summarize my talk. So we found the surface profile of a thermal group is in excellent agreement with Mullins's theory for stationary as well as for mobile groups. We also found the specimen thickness effect is present in polycrystalline thin film. Specifically observed partial stagnation of the grain structure for lower film thicknesses. And for stagnation, the topology of the grain structure also becomes important, and complete stagnation occurs when all the grains are above critical size. And reduction in surface diffusion after groove formation leads to groove behave like a notch of a certain depth fixed at the surface that causes grain growth stagnation. And we also found three possible interactions between grain boundary motion and the groove. And these are grain boundary pinning, grain boundary detachment, and coupling. Thank you for your attention. I finally like to acknowledge National Supercomputing Mission, CDAC, and Initiation Grant, IIT Kanpur for funding this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Rajdeep. Now, if there are any questions, can you unmute yourself and ask, or raise your hand? Either way is fine.
Someone is talking. Can you mute?
Yeah, trying to find out who it is. So, Rajdeep, there is a question in the chat. Can you
Yes.
kindly elaborate on the active grain tracking algorithm?
So this active parameter tracking algorithm, right?
Hmm.
So what is the question about it?
What is the algorithm, or can you explain how it is done?
See, the exact algorithm, I am not completely, I don't know exactly. I can tell you what people do for this active parameter tracking. Generally, when you want to solve this Allen-Khan equation for grain growth, right? In that case, this you have to say you have using some 100 orientational variables, right? So for each this orientation, you have a phi, right? And each phi you have to solve at each and every point of the system, right? Each and every grid point, right? Now, this will increase your computation time as well as your memory. So if we can find which phi's are basically changing, and these phi's are generally close to the grain boundary, right? If we can make a table and find which phi's are basically active, which phi's are basically changing with time, then we can make a table and we can only solve for those phi values. Okay. And that way we'll reduce the number of computation steps. We can reduce the lots of computation steps because inside the grain we are not solving the Allen-Khan equation. Only close to the grain boundary we are solving the Allen-Khan equation, right? So the grain boundary area is very small compared to the total area. You can see specifically for a 3D simulation, and this way we save a lots of computation time. But if you want to see the actual algorithm, there are papers which I can refer to you. Okay.
Thanks, Rajdeep.
Yeah.
Any other question? Anybody else has a question?
Guru, I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So Mukherjee, you had actually explained the relationship between the film thickness and the grain boundary growing, the pinning effect. So
Yes.
you said that when the thickness gets smaller and smaller, the dependency changes from R by A to R by 2A.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So that part was not very clear to me. So could you explain that once again?
That I don't have the equations with me right now. But the thing is that this R by 2A is also not very much correct for a polycrystalline thin film. Okay. So this is only possible when you think of a notch. Okay. So
Okay.
that is why what we did, I can show you here. We found this the specific this A value, right? This R value. Not for us, we know the film thickness. We have to find the critical grain size, right? So that is what we can do. We cannot change the thickness for a particular film. We can change the grain size, right? We can find the what is the critical grain size for a polycrystalline material. So we have the grain size distribution for all these things and all this microstructure evolution. And from there, we find the slowest moving bean for which the frequency rate change is minimum. Means above this bean size, basically the grains will be stagnated, right? So that is the specific film, that is the specific radius. And from there, we cannot take basically R by 2A, but we can find this R and A ratio by finding out the slowest moving bean. Basically, if you have 10 beans for this grain size distribution, so we find that that part where it is the slowest moving, right? And after above that, there will be grain growth stagnation. So that is the critical grain size we have taken, and that is with that we basically use these three configurations, and we can show that if there is a with this if the grains are above the critical size, you can have complete grain growth stagnation. Is that answers? Is it so? Is it okay?
Okay. So, but uh, yeah. So the critical size grain size argument, I understand that above that grain size there is no, I mean, no pinning of the grains, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
But how? I mean, why would it depend on R by 2A or R by A? The relationship should.
There is the analytical theory right now. I don't have here, but you can find in Malin's paper. Okay, but I don't have right now. I don't have the derivation here. Okay, so Malin's
Okay.
paper, or this paper, you can see, you can go here and you can derive. Actually, the complete derivation is written here. 1 minute. This paper, if you go to this 1957 paper, there this figure is there, so the derivation is given there. Okay.
Okay.
But right now I
Fine.
won't be able to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks.
Is there any other question? So Rajdeep, I did have a question in the same Malin's paper.
Yes, yes.
So these catenoids look like the periodic minimal surfaces that would form if you had two sort of circular regions and you try to make a soap film between them, right?
Yes. So basically, if you see this catenoid, if it is a catenoid, if you can think of a catenoid, and
Right.
each and every point of this surface of this catenoid, the total curvature will be 0. Means that there is a two curvature, right? For this circular area, circular this trace, there is a curvature. Another curvature you can see here, which is which is going inside, right? Which is actually causing the, it is basically opposing the grain growth, right? So if these two curvatures becomes equal at each and every point, then the total driving force will become 0, right? Because at each and every point, their total curvature will be 0, so there will be no driving force. The driving force for grain growth will be 0, and that is why it will form a catenoid.
So if you so this basically assumes that interfacial energy is isotropic.
This basically assumes the interfacial energy isotropic. Yes.
So if it is not isotropic, do you get other shapes like this, or does the argument not hold anymore if you have anisotropic
If
interface?
if it is anisotropic interface, then say the circular grain has a anisotropy as a defined surface energy than the outer grain. Say the inner grain, that the cylindrical grain has a lower surface energy, right? So then the system will try to increase the area of the grain, right? So there will be another driving force that will basically try to increase the size of the grains, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, anisotropy in surface energy imparts another driving force for grain growth, and that may not depend on a smaller grain or larger grain. So that will depend on the surface energy, and that way the boundary will be carved accordingly also. And if you think of, there is no external driving forces. If you have a straight grain boundary, now two surfaces are defined surface energy, right? So basically, the grain boundary will move towards the grain which have higher surface energy.
So if different parts of this boundary has different energy, that can lead to different shapes. It will no longer be ellipsoid or circular, but it can become.
Yes, it can be more complex if you have the surface energy and isotropy along with it.
Is there any other question? Anybody else?
Yes, Guru. Can I go ahead? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Rajdeep. It was a very interesting, talk. I think in your presentation, you have assumed that the grain boundary energies are isotropic, and all grain boundaries have the same energy, is it?
Yes, all grain boundary energy isotropic. All are high angle grain boundary. Surface energy is isotropic. Everything is isotropic.
Okay. What if you consider in your the ensemble of grains, some grain boundaries being high energy grain boundaries, or high angle grain boundaries, some having low angle grain boundaries? What kind of situation arise due to these? The triple junctions, etc., would then be affected. We would then have triple junctions formed by two low angle grain boundaries, one high angle grain boundary, etc. You have some interesting realistic situations. Right?
Yes. The situation will be very complex in that case, because the critical this theta c or critical this grain size also depends on this grain boundary energy. So if you have defined grain boundaries, so they will have spinning effect will be more or less according to their energy. Okay. Basically the spinning depend on this gamma s by gamma gb, right? So the pinning will be less or more depending on whether it's a low angle grain boundary or a high angle grain boundary. So even you can see a larger grain with a lower grain boundary energy. I think it may not be a higher grain boundary energy. It may not be pinned actually. That is it. So it will be a more complex thing. So if we have, so basically it is better if we can do a bulk grain growth behavior. We can study a bulk grain growth behavior with defined sigma boundaries or low angle and high angle grain boundaries, and then we can introduce a surface and we can see how this surface is acting on this, how it is changing on this grain growth behavior. Okay, even for surface energy anisotropy, what Guru was telling, for that people see abnormal grain growth actually. So so that is observed for thin film. So you can get an abnormal kind of grain growth because certain boundaries will be stagnated, and you can see some grain will grow and some grains will not grow at all, and you can see a few abnormal grains there on the microstructure.
See, although the interfacial energy is not a strong function of temperature,
yes.
What would be the influence of temperature on this critical grain size for stagnation?
It also depends actually on the grain boundary mobility. Okay, this stagnation a little bit. So this with the increase in basically if you decrease the temperature, this surface diffusion control. If you increase the temperature, basically surface diffusion control will be less, right? Because the difference between the surface diffusion and bulk diffusion will be less, right, at higher temperature. So that time it is grain boundary grooving will be controlled by the bulk diffusion. So the kinetics also will change here. So the stagnation or the size distribution part we are getting with increasing temperature, if it goes from surface diffusion control to bulk diffusion control behavior of grooving, then actually this whole kinetics will change. That we can expect.
Critical grain size.
This is mostly all this theory what I have presented, Marlins's theory or my simulation. This is for surface diffusion control grain boundary grooving.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other question? Any clarification?
Guru, I had one more question.
Sir, go ahead.
Yes. So this model by Mullins is assuming that the grain is in a freestanding thin film, right?
It is a freestanding. You can see both sides is grooving, right?
Yes. So in the case where the thin film is actually on another substrate layer, then would there be elastic effects also that would contribute to this? I mean, the stagnation or the pinning of the grains?
The part that like you get this ATG kind of instabilities and things, those can also happen, and that can also happen, obviously. Okay, if you have a coherent this epitaxial kind of thin film, there is a coherency between the substrate and the thin film, and in that case, the grooving behavior will be defined on both sides, right? So there, the getting a catenoid will be difficult, I think, in that case. I expect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay. So there are no more questions. Let us thank Rajdeep. Thanks a lot, Rajdeep, for a nice talk.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, lots of fun, lots of grades. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
You.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks. Yeah. Bye. So I'm going to close the meeting now.